across Texas. The issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas. The issue is.
The race to name the Speaker of the House for the Texas legislature is drama-filled and is heating up. A floor vote is about a month away, and now top Republicans are once again threatening to primary incumbents if they do not vote for Mansfield Republican David Cook.
I think it's customary to announce the Speaker's race is over.
76 votes are needed to become the Speaker of the Texas House. Last week, Lubbock Republican Dustin Burrows declared victory, citing he had enough Republican and Democrat support. Moments later, some removed their names from his endorsement list. Mansfield Republican David Cook secured the House Republican caucus endorsement for Speaker, but it was a vote taken without all 88 members present.
Well, it's a fascinating strategic political situation, and it reflects the ongoing division among Republicans in the Texas House between a conservative faction and a more establishment moderate faction. And that is a battle that has been going on among Texas Republicans for more than a decade now over House leadership.
Neither candidate has 76 public endorsements ahead of the floor vote next month. I talked to SMU political scientist Matthew Wilson about the in-party drama.
I think the huge question is how many more moderate establishment Republicans are willing to vote with the Democrats to elect a speaker. Because if they do, they will be susceptible to primary challenges. And we've seen primary challenges succeed in the recent past. In the most recent round, a lot of the Republicans who voted to impeach Ken Paxton or who voted against school choice or both lost their seats.
Isn't 2 years a long way away from here? Won't voters just not even remember this?
Activists will remember, and activists are the ones who fund the primary challenges. Activists are the ones who disproportionately vote in primaries. So they have long memories, and I think it's something that people will at least have to take into account.
Whoever becomes speaker, will that set the tone for the type of legislation that possibly is able to reach Governor Abbott's desk? Is it saying, if it's Burrows, we'll have Phelan 2.0, or if it's Cook, will Dan Patrick get more of what he wants and we'll see even more red meat reach Governor Abbott's desk?
I think definitely the question is whether the House is going to operate more or less the way the Senate does, and whether it's going to have a decidedly conservative flavor to it, as we've seen in the Texas Senate. I would expect that if Cook prevails, that you will probably see the end of Democratic Party chairmanships in the House, and you will see an easier path for conservative legislation to the governor's desk. If Burrows prevails, I think that once again, the House is going to be in some ways a check on or a roadblock to what the Senate wants to see done.
You have Donald Trump Jr., who recently posted on Twitter supporting David Cook. Will outside voices make pressure on Republicans, or do you think the Republicans who are against Cook will keep their feet dug into the ground?
Well, I think outside pressure does play a role. And as we've already seen, some people who initially were supportive of Burrows are saying, well, no, let's wait a second. I'm not sure. I want to keep my options open. I don't want my name used to cement his speakership. So I think people really are reevaluating, because it's 2024, this round of primaries in the state legislature showed that it's a new ballgame. It showed that Republican forces and Republican leaders will come after Republican incumbents who are perceived as insufficiently conservative. And not only will they come after them, but they can succeed. That's what the 2024 cycle showed. And so I think people are going to be a lot more cautious about throwing their lot in across party lines with the Democrats than has been true in the past.
All right, my word for that is strong arm. Maybe that's a hyphenated word. I don't know. I'm not good at grammar sometimes. Rudy Koski, what is your word?
Stephen, this reads like a modern day Greek tragedy, doesn't it? So I will go with cycloptic.
I can't even spell that. Greg, what about you?
Stephen, I'm going with a number, 76.
All right, the Fox Texas Trio will be back after this break. The Fox Texas Trio is back. Greg, you're up to bat first. Dustin Burrows said that he had the votes, and now he doesn't. What do you make of all this?
Stephen, it all depends on how many of his loyalists will ignore the mounting right-wing threats, dig in, and stay the course. My sources say, despite some defections, Burrows still has in the neighborhood of 30 solid Republican votes willing to go the distance. Now, if that's true, David Cook doesn't have anywhere near 76 votes unless he successfully courts some Democrats, which I'm told is unlikely at best. We have seen a trio of Phelan backers here in the Houston area fold and jump on the Cook train after the governor and lieutenant governor made strong statements this week. I'm also told there is a real possibility a third player emerges, a compromise choice, someone like Tom Craddock, the 29-term, 81-year-old former House Speaker. Wouldn't that be something?
Wow, I didn't even think about that. Rudy, man, Rudy, what do you make of all this? I mean, Burrows came out saying that he had it. Now, Cook wins the caucus nomination. Abbott and Patrick are weighing in. What do you make of this?
I'm still trying to process the Craddock prediction there. Wouldn't that be something? Wow. Greg, you pulled that one out of the left field there, brother. Hey, I agree with what Matthew Wilson said. Regardless of who is speaker, we should get a lot of red meat to be served up this next session. But this moment, may also go down as one of those pivotal historical political moments. Case in point, a report published by the Texas Politics Project on how Texas Democrats lost their one-time, one-party rule here in Texas. The moment, according to that report, happened in 1961 when Republican John Tower won a seat that was vacated by LBJ after he became Kennedy's vice president. It was a significant time because that's when the general election voter turnout, after several decades of one-party dominance, exceeded the number of voters when Democrats selected their nominees in their primary. So after that, Election Day in Texas became a more competitive race as more Texans turned off by the Democrats voted, outpacing turnout by party loyalists for the Democrats. Democrats were simply out of step with the changes happening in Texas at that time and across the country. So looking at the last few election cycles we've had here in Texas, you could argue a similar trend is happening right now. We've seen Texas GOP party operatives meeting with Nazi sympathizers and the GOP base backing an attorney general who doesn't dispute that he retaliated against his own staff after they blew the whistle on actions considered unethical and possibly criminal. So the Texas GOP now, sure, it's looking and sounding a lot like those Texas Dixiecrats from the 60s and 70s. The legislative menu in January, it's going to be a lot of red meat. But in the near future, that could change to some political crow being served up, Stephen.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see. We'll be there on hand in January. Greg, you alluded to this earlier that basically this really can come down to will those Burrows supporters fold, right? And up here in North Texas, some who were targeted for voting to impeach Ken Paxton survived their primaries and were able to win re-election. Do you think we'll just have a similar situation of some knowing their district more than the threats and saying I'm sticking with my guy no matter what?
Stephen, my guess is there are at the very least 14 unwilling to knuckle under to bullying from the state party or national party or the radical right-wing billionaires funding retaliatory primaries. In other words, if standing their ground ultimately costs them their seats, I'm pretty sure they can live with that. You got to think at some point this purity testing and excommunication movement within the Texas GOP is eventually going to backfire. In the meantime, I'm going to quote my friend Bill King, who likes to say the only thing saving Texas Republicans is just how god-awful the Democrats are.
Rudy, do you agree?
Boy, that's spot on. I agree 100% with Greg there. But those Republicans should be ready for a fight. The revenge tour didn't, primary Phelan, but it succeeded in taking away his speaker's gavel. And several old conservatives, they were primaried. What I'm going to be watching, guys, is for, this infighting. Will it trigger lawsuits next year over the new party rule that prevents any Republican who's censored by the party bosses from getting on the GOP primary ballot? That will be an interesting fight to see.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. To see this episode or any of our past ones, go to our station's YouTube channels.
and keep the conversation going on our social media.
Join us next week as we talk with newly re-elected Senator Ted Cruz about the coming Trump administration and what it means for Texas. In the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.